Hello, I'm Michael Bender. And in this third and final micro lesson on estimating basics, we're going to look at the 7 key parameters that affect the accuracy of estimates. We'll also give you some tools to address each of these issues with your team. I hope you enjoy the video.
If you viewed the previous 2 micro lessons on estimating basics, you're already familiar with the concept of effort versus duration estimates and estimating accuracy. Now, let's look at our 7 parameters that can help you generate more accurate estimates. Note that these techniques work with both effort and duration estimates. Our first parameter is also our first key success parameter to high productivity organizations: clear definition. This covers 2 aspects of estimating. The first is clear task definition. Simply put, if I know exactly what I'm building, the more reliable my estimate. If the task definition is vague, my estimate will be unreliable. The second aspect is clearly defined roles and responsibilities. If I know who is in my team and what role I play, the more accurate my estimate. The second is our second key success parameter: ownership. The most reliable estimate will come from the task owner. They are the experts. They know what it will take for them to create their deliverable. Allowing them to create the estimate generates ownership, and ownership generates motivation and pride. Of course, we recognize that most people pad estimates. This causes a lot of managers to force tight deadlines on team members. This technique, however, removes ownership, encourages team members to skimp on quality, and there are other techniques to handle padding which allows a team member to retain ownership. We'll cover some of these techniques later in this micro lesson, and we cover this topic in more depth in other micro lessons. Historical alignment and accuracy is the next parameter for generating accurate estimates. In live classrooms, I frequently ask the question, what is an estimate? The most common answer I get, well, it's a guess. And that's exactly correct. I then point out that it's a little bit more than a guess. It's actually a prediction of the future. There are only 2 ways I know of predicting the future. The first is from historical information. The second is using a crystal ball. While I'm not aware of any scientific comparisons of the 2 methods, generally in projects we tend to use historical information. The more accurate my historical information and the more aligned this task is to tasks I've done in the past, the more reliable my estimate will be. Also, the more frequently I've done the task, the more accurate my estimate. I encourage all project managers and team members to record and retain the actual time it takes to do an activity, phase, or project. That way, when we do a similar activity, phase, or project in the future, we have reliable and accurate information. Task size is our next parameter. Simply put, the smaller the task, the easier it is to estimate. To demonstrate this concept, let's take an extreme perspective. I may not know the cost of constructing a huge building, but electrical contractors know exactly what it takes to install an outlet. When a team member is having difficulty estimating a task, one of the tricks I use to help them is to have them create a checklist of all the steps that they will have to do to complete the task. This generally does the trick and I get reliable estimates. This technique also helps identify misunderstandings regarding the scope of the activity. Essentially, it's creating a deeper work breakdown structure. Productivity is our next parameter. We covered this topic in our first micro lesson on estimating basics. We live in a multitasking society. However, the more people multitask and the greater the number of concurrent activities they're responsible for, the less reliable their estimate for this task will be. It's also one of the top reasons most people pad their estimates. Padding estimates creates fat estimates and fat projects. Encourage your team to focus on individual tasks until complete. You'll get more accurate estimates and your projects will complete faster. Every activity has an ideal team size. Many tasks have an ideal team size of 1. If you're familiar with extreme programming, you'll profess an ideal team size for creating code is 2 programmers. If you've ever had somebody finish a basement or build a deck, you'll likely recognize an ideal team size of about 3 or 4, depending on capabilities. Less than 3 causes the team to lose efficiency, while more than 4, they're starting to trip over themselves. Work with your teams to determine the ideal team size for each activity. You'll get accurate estimates and smoother projects. Our last parameter is unknowns and risks. As each project is unique, it will contain some unknowns and risks. There are several techniques for overcoming these challenges. First, break the task down into more detailed activities. You'll find the risky areas are actually less than you first thought. Second, include a discovery or research task designed to reduce the risk. Estimate the discovery or research task, and the rest of the task will fall nicely into place. Perhaps surprisingly, estimating discovery tasks is not as difficult as you might imagine. Follow the other estimating parameters to improve the reliability of your estimate. Break the task down into smaller activities. Establish an ideal team size for the research. Clearly define the research and assign ownership. While larger research activities may still offer a challenge, these techniques will help improve the reliability of your research task estimate. Our last technique for handling risks is to have the task owner establish a realistic but tight estimate for the overall activity. Then have them manage the unknowns using standard risk management techniques. Let's do a quick review of our tricks and techniques for getting accurate estimates. Our first parameter is clear definition. Clearly define each task and activity. Also make sure you clearly define roles and responsibilities of the individual members of your team. Next on our list is ownership. Each task has an owner, and that owner is the expert. After all, they know what will take them to create that deliverable. Allow the task owner to give the estimate. And remember, ownership generates motivation and pride. Next on our list is historical alignment and accuracy. Capture and retain actuals of your activities, phases, and projects. Use these actuals to help you estimate future activities, phases, and projects. Next on our list is task size. If you have an individual having difficulty coming up with an estimate for an activity, have them break the task down into smaller steps. You can use a checklist for this. You'll find your estimates become much more accurate. Our next trick is productivity. Encourage team members to focus on activities until complete. You'll not only discover that your estimates are much more accurate, you'll discover that your projects get done a lot faster. Our next technique is ideal team size. Work with your teams to establish the right team size for each activity. And finally, handling unknowns and risks. First, break the task down into more detailed activities. You'll discover that the risky areas are actually less than you first thought. Second, you can create a discovery or research activity. You can estimate that activity, and you'll find the rest of the activities fall into place. The third technique is estimating the overall task and then handle the risks using standard risk management techniques.
I hope you found this microlesson useful. In subsequent microlessons, we'll talk about more advanced estimating techniques, as well as project scheduling techniques. We look forward to seeing you in another microlesson.